Okay, finally finding an opportunity to review these colors for you here. This is the photograph that was used in the film that you referenced. And this is that same view. And one thing to know, those photos I show you, like this one, are ray traced, so they are a more high quality than a simple view. And then usually I autocorrect these to something like this. So when we're looking at this view, it's just not going to look like what you're used to looking at, but it should give us the true answer as to which colors I applied to these various materials. And I don't know where this is going to lead, but it looks like I started horsing around with these colors in December of 2022. Presumably this is one of the colors you gave me, this Sherwin-Williams Portico and Sherwin-Williams Sandy Ridge. That must have been the two colors you gave me. And then these three figures here are what you use to adjust various colors to end up with this. In my program is the RGB, which is these three numbers here for each of these colors. You can see how they differ. So I adjust those colors within my program by adjusting these red, green, and blue values. And again, so much of that is going to depend upon interpretation and lighting and what you're viewing it on a monitor or whatever. So a lot of that is really going to be kind of interpretive. Like this one compared to two before is obviously, these are three different things, even though they're all containing those same color values, whatever those color values are, which we'll find out now. And I either have a suspicion or a recollection that at the time when I applied these same straight up numbers into these materials, that it was too far off from what I was seeing on the screen, and that I might have tried to adjust my colors so that at least it looked like this on some of those photographic representations. Also notice this color up here, this number up here is the hex code, which is just a translation of this into a different form that you could plug into various applications. And this was a color matching application apparently, and I plugged that same base RGB in here, that AE18, and it gives you, you know, complementary colors if you wanted to, or this or that. I'm not sure what I was actually looking for there. Now, this was taking AE8 and applying it, and then I must have selected this as some sort of color, I don't know. This is from back in that film. I don't see these light ones. I don't see this light one anywhere. If that's supposed to be the light one, then that should be on that trim, then obviously we have it wrong. But let's go over there and see what that is showing as its RGB, some of those colors. I don't know if this will work or not, but we'll find out. And so the way this works in the program is I can click on this, and this is to see what the color is or adjust the color definition, okay? And in the case of the brick, I just use a white brick and then I add in the color. And apparently what I added in is this color here. I'm pretty sure these numbers are not going to match those other ones. Going back over here, you can see some of the interpretive stuff I talked about, because this brick is supposed to be the same as these verticals down here. And you can see if I don't color correct that, yeah, it's pretty close to this matching that. And this has been color corrected, but it's not the ray trace version. But here were the colors that you had sent over, this Sandy Ridge and Portico, with their RGB values, and this was our RGB value on that brick add-in, 161, 142, and 119. So that's matching that, which is the darker one. So that value actually does match exactly 161, 142, and 119 on that brick color to this Sherwin-Williams Sandy Ridge. And I presume that this, I'm not sure how this was put together here. Okay, so this is a little different because I had started with this wood having a grain, which it would, and then I don't know if it's the same, 161, 142, and 119 applied to that fence as well. So this is the dark color and this is the dark color down here. Now if we look at the siding, next, to me the siding looks exactly like this trim, you know, this corner board, or the corner boards and the fascia and all that, that all looks the same to me. But looking at the siding, so the texture, this texture was a green, so that's going to affect it. I'm positive. And so what we must have mixed with that is that same dark color with that green. So that's a little revealing. And if that, presumably then that must have been the instruction that the siding was to match the brick. But this trim, like the fascia, that should be the light color. There's no texture with that, it's just the color. And this one is 187, 171, and 149, which is different from the siding, which is showing as this dark stuff, but it's mixed in with that green, so I'm not so sure what is happening with that, and we'll see here in a minute. But before we look at anything about that siding, that 187, 171, and 149 does match this lighter color. So the darker was the 161, 142, and this is the 187, and this matches the lighter color. So right now we have the portico. You can see it down here in the corner when it shows up. I'm picking portico A. I've named that portico A. All this light stuff, columns portico A, this little trim down here is all portico A. One color which is matching that lighter Sherwin-Williams color. Similarly for the darker color, if you watch me and I use this and pick this eyedropper, and then I pick the material, it'll show up in the lower left corner down here, whatever I'm picking. And if I pick this, I have named this the Sandy Ridge brick, and that one requires a texture, but that texture going in is white, and then it's mixed with that straight up Sandy Ridge color. So that's Sandy Ridge brick. And these verticals down here I've named Sandy Ridge Ash because they currently have this texture that you see up here and here. And I've blended that same Sherwin-Williams Sandy Ridge with this. In a minute we're going to do a few different things. And the very first thing I want to do is recall that this siding had this green go-in starting texture. So the first thing I want to do is change that to a straight up white texture. And this is pretty white, and I have been showing this siding with a 6-inch exposure, so we're going to maintain that same 6-inch exposure, and then we're going to blend this same, the 161, the dark color. So now technically that should match that brick exactly. So that was the first thing we're going to do, and very frankly I don't see much difference between these two. So now if we look at this color here, it's the darker one, the 161, and it's mixed with straight white siding. And the brick is, we've been through this, the brick is that same color, the darker color mixed with straight white brick. And yet, to me, even though we've now altered this so it's not starting from that green siding starting point, to me those two don't match from looking at this photograph. I have also backed out that bleached ash texture that was in this fencing. I would do that right now. So it's gone, and we're just going to call that straight up Sandy Ridge because it's just like painting a piece of wood. And you can see that begins to make it seem to depart from this brick up here. So it looked like it matched the brick closer before that happened. Nevertheless, I'm going to make one of these high-grade photos, and then I'm going to undo that. Now here's the photo we've been looking at from that film 5. And this is a larger version of the same thing, maybe a little bit later dated because it's got a downspout on it. But the same colors apply, and here again this siding doesn't look like it matches the brick, but I see a pretty stark color difference between this, this fascia and the corner boards and all this trim and the rest of that. And we've reviewed that. That's all the light color. That's the color that was sent over. And then I talked to you on the telephone after this about whether you want to make any alterations now that you know that it is matching those colors, and you said no. So hopefully this was at least somewhat helpful. Thanks, and I'll be in touch a little later. Well, by the end of the week I'll be in touch. Thanks.